what's happening, everybody? That was a bit of a long intro, I know, but I wanted to set the scene for this because it's a pretty serious video. I've got some pretty strong views about what I'm about to talk about, and that is we are basically due another terrorist attack. There's no two ways about it. It's been quite a while now before since we've had one, and before long we're gonna see something happen. Other than the Lee Rigby beheading murder that was in London. I don't really want to talk too much directly about that particular incident, but it's quite obvious that when you watch some of the videos of what happened there, some of the people that were in the background were just at a loss as to what to do, and consequently they were in kind of a state of shock. That situation is just unacceptable, really. We need more, I don't really like using the word sheepdogs, but we need a hell of a lot more sheepdogs in this world. And quite frankly, what I saw was just nothing other than sheep in the background of that video. There was people that were just stopped halfway up the street in their cars. I mean, regardless if someone's supposedly got a revolver, if I was one of the people driving the car, I would have tried to run them over. It's as simple as that. There's no two ways about it. So we need a bit more of the let's roll attitude, I think. Something is going to happen pretty soon, and we need to be prepared, not only equipment-wise, and if in the UK that means carrying the occasional illegal weapon, just to ensure that the percentage of people carrying weapons, the percentage of those people that are good is more than the percentage of those people bad, basically, because all the law does is stop people that are law-abiding. So there's no point in putting a law saying, ban weapons, ban guns in America, for example. That's ridiculous, because all that will happen then is the only guns in existence will be illegal ones in the hands of people that don't need to be in possession of firearms. And it's exactly the same with pocket knives. I won't get into the UK laws with knives. I'm going to split that into a different video, because quite frankly this is just a little bit more directed towards how we're going to cope with if something happens severe enough to be able to destroy, for example, buildings or something of that nature. There's going to be a local shortage of water. For example, the World Trade Center situation, there were people running about drastically needing water, not because they were thirsty, but because their mouths were just completely choked up with dust. And just needing to wash their eyes out and stuff like that. So there's actually more important needs of water, especially in a city. You're not going to be a day and a half without water and in drastic need of water at the time an accident happens. The chances are when a terrorist attack happens and a situation like a building is blown up or something of the sort, there's going to be debris and dust everywhere. You're not really going to be very thirsty. You might be after a few hours, but it's not going to be a life-threatening stage. More likely is you're going to need to get clean. You're going to need to clean your hands, clean wounds, which is probably pretty much at the top of the list, I would say. Clean water, help you clean wounds. Obviously, not everyone's going to have full first aid facilities with them. So, water sources. In a suburban environment, it's a bit of a problem, that, because there's going to be a lot of contaminants. Sometimes it will be absolutely obvious by just looking at the water source. It just tells you straight away, don't even think about purifying it or anything, just don't start. It would be a waste of time. And it's a bit of a shame to think that you would have to go so far out into the countryside to get somewhere where the water source is pure enough to actually drink. So, but you still got to bear in mind things like, here's a diagram of water that basically what this illustrates is you've got a situation there where you might see contaminants on the water. You might see contaminants on the surface of the landmass next to the water, but because you think it's higher up, it won't bother the source of water. But you don't realise to what extent it can actually leach down through the soil, and then as the water level rises, it can absorb in those toxins, and then as the water level drops, it can still appear to be a relatively clear-looking stream, but little to your knowledge, it's actually absorbed some pretty nasty contaminants from something that appears to be much higher up on the water table than. Just because you're confused with the situation that if it hasn't been a lot of rain recently, or if it's low tide, if the river's particularly tidal. Most rivers are fast-flowing mountain streams, not necessarily. but most actual pretty much solid rivers are relatively tidal. So you just got to be careful of, don't just look at the water, I suppose is what I'm trying to get to, the point I'm trying to say. You really need to have a good glance around upstream, pretty important, and have just a good check of what the soil's like nearby. Has anybody dumped any oil or anything from a car engine, even if it's several meters away from the actual riverbank. In a flood, for example, could have washed some of that oil into a small pocket, a void that's in the gravel or something at the bottom of the river, and then all it needs is a disturbance of water as you're searching for your water source or moving rocks around looking for fish or something, and then you just basically chew up the water and ruin your water source all downstream. So now it's pretty safe to assume that the idea that we're all going to be, as soon as the shit hits the fan, we're all going to be out in the middle of the forest, miles away from anywhere, and we're just going to be subject to our own knowledge regarding bushcraft and access to things made out of wood and handmade cordage. It's probably not going to be the case at all. I think the situation comes whereby you have to get out of your street or your entire neighbourhood. You'll probably be kind of lurking around the outskirts, not quite in the centre of town, and not really out in the countryside. An area where you're going to have access to things that are going to make life a great deal easier, like sort of pieces of steel, cord, rope, steel cable in certain circumstances. All these things you're not really going to find if you're in the absolute middle of nowhere and in the thick of total dense jungle. There's going to be a lot of things that you're going to find extremely useful on the outskirts of sort of, I'd call, extra urban area, I suppose. But that does present another problem, and it's a little bit more difficult to get away from the population. So you're going to have to be a little bit more crafty regarding, I mean, you can't just camo up in green DPM and just sit there for hours and disappear into the wilderness like it would be possible to do if you're in the total countryside. It's going to be a little bit more cunning with, I think, uses of distractions, tripwire alarms to protect yourself when you're sleeping at night, things like that. I'm going to do a tripwire alarm video, which just consists of a couple of tubes and some fishing line, and I'm just going to use a blank at the bottom, so it'll actually be quite effective some distance away. If someone you've got only 3 or 4 approaches to where your camp is, and you tripwire all of them. You can hear which one goes off, and if there are different distances, and you've test fired them as well, i.e. you've got one of your friends or something, or you've set up a system where you can set the tripwire off, and you can sit in camp and get used to where the direction, how loud they are. You can pretty much, upon waking up and hearing the tripwire go off, you should be able to ascertain a rough direction of which area is being intruded upon. So I'm definitely going to be using, and I'll probably pack about 3 or 4 of these little, I'm just going to knock up some little tubes with a gravity sort of spike that's going to strike the primer. Nothing complex at all, just a very basic, just a tripwire alarm that uses blanks, something that you could just knock up in about sort of 10 minutes or so. So yeah, definitely a lot of things to think about, but I suppose the biggest problem would be making sure that you're actually able to get to this area in the first place, and if it is the event of a terrorist attack, you might have to stop yourself from being murdered in order to escape the destruction and the damage and get yourself somewhere safe. So I'm just going to basically end this video now. I'm going to keep it pretty short because it's a very specific topic, and I don't want to wander off into other topics too much. Otherwise I'll be struggling to what to call the video. But the situation is coming pretty soon, and we all need to be pretty aware of it, and just be extra vigilant, and just not hesitate to attack. If you're absolutely sure that something really bad is about to go down, or is in the process of going down, then just dive in. If you get injured, basically you'll be famous. You'll be on the news, and there'll be people buying your story and giving you money. If you don't get injured, it's a bonus. In the unlikely event that you get killed, because I'm hoping that you make the correct decision in that you're not just going to run straight in the middle of it, absolutely blind and with no thought of a tactical approach whatsoever. Um, Basically, what I'm saying is that if it's necessary to attack a terrorist in order to stop people being killed, do so in a tactical way that will result in the best possible outcome. Um, for example, the car. Don't run out and oh yeah, I've got this amazing knife with me. I'm going to use it today. If you sat behind the wheel of a car, forget the knife. Just run them over. But it's a little bit graphic. I know some of the aspects I'm mentioning in this video, but it's certainly it's just I think there's something on its way, and we all need to really watch out and be prepared. Thanks for watching.